I know I wasn't a reader. Students love to hear this, that I flunked every grade through fifth grade. We did not have a Mariposa Foundation. We had a dictatorship kind of classroom. Everything was learning by rote and punishment, and I hated school and I couldn't concentrate. And the teachers would send notes home saying, Julia cannot pay attention. And I'd get home, and one of my aunties would say, you want to hear a story? And I would sit there glued. I had no problems paying attention. I just knew what was a good story and what was toxic. And the only book I remember reading was, I had an auntie, the only auntie who read, and she was a jamona, of course, an old maid, because she was 24 and she hadn't gotten married, because my grandmother said, what man is going to marry a woman that has her nose in a book? And I thought that wasn't great PR for being a reader. But she gave me this amazing book. And it was about a girl that looked Dominican, not a blonde, blue-eyed princess. And what did she do? She told stories. She was about to be killed by a cruel sultan. And when she was taken in before him, she said, would you like to hear a story before you kill me? And before I'm executed at dawn. And he said, sure. And she told him a story. And she was such a great storyteller that she ended the story and started a new one as the sun was coming up when she was supposed to be killed. And she said, well, I can't finish the story. I have to be, it's my time to be executed. He said, no, I will spare you one more night while you finish the story. And she did the same thing again. Finished the story, started a new one, and this went on for 1,001 nights. Not a very smart sultan. He hadn't figured it out, right? In 1,001 nights. But what happened is, listening to her stories, his heart became transformed and he repented his evil ways. And he fell in love with Scheherazade and her stories. So not that I thought of it in this intellectual way, but it put a little seed in my head. The stories have power, that they can save you, not just you, but all the women in your kingdom, because he was killing all the women before this. And so she had saved herself, the women in her kingdom, and even the cruel sultan by changing his ways. So I was pretty impressed. I didn't know stories could do this. So this was my one experience of reading in childhood. But it was a dictatorship. Some images from the time, Trujillo in the upper left, the black Volkswagens that were used by the secret police. This was their vehicle. And whenever you heard that sound of a Volkswagen or saw that little bug coming up to your house, you were terrified. He also, one of the things to realize is that it was really gender violence to the nth degree. The dictator could exercise le droit du seigneur, the right of the Lord. He could have any women he wanted, and married, virgin, child, whatever, and you couldn't oppose him or your family would be eliminated. And he would have these periodic parades of all the women marching before him and paying homage to him. There he is in his car, and an image from the torture chambers and what was going on, people being disappeared, people terrified to speak, a population really under trauma and terrified. So meanwhile, these three young sisters, the Mirabar sisters, were especially concientizado, mobilized by Minerva, who was the real firebrand among them. She's the one with the guitar. And she was a reader. And she got all these ideas in her head. And she said that something had to be done to change the country. And so she, along with her husband and her sisters, started the underground organization. I always like to include, because often he gets sidetracked, the man who was driving them that day, Rufino de la Cruz, who really was very loyal and lost his life, giving them a ride to go visit their husbands. So these were the Mirabar sisters. These are some of the people in my family that were involved in the underground. two of them, Huáscar Tejeda in the middle and Robert Reed on the right, were victims of the dictatorship and died. Tio Meme, another Tio on the upper left-hand side, spent 9 months in the torture chambers. We didn't know if he was dead or alive. And for who knows what reason, he was not killed by Ramfis before the Trujillos left the country, even though everyone on his row at La Victoria were slaughtered that day. This came up, this surfaced after my father died. My cousin discovered this picture, and my father is the one in camouflage holding the boots. And this was part of their cell, their group in the underground. And they would go up to the mountains to exercise their maneuvers for the takeover. And people were not allowed weapons, but people could have hunting rifles. So all of a sudden, everyone in the underground was a hunter, and they would go up to hunt guineas, guinea hens, and that would be the alibi. And so that's why those guinea hens are there, because they had to come back from those maneuvers over the weekend up in the mountains with something to show in order not to be discovered. But they were discovered. Papi's cell, that same cell, was cracked. And, under torture, people will Trujillo and his sim would know just the torture to apply to that person to break them. And it was just a question of time before Papi was taken away. And who knew what would happen to his family. So we managed to get out. It's too long a story to tell, but I'm still in touch with the family of Manuel Chavez, CIA operative in the country who had contacted Papi's cell and offered them weapons for the takeover. And then the United States reneged on it and everyone was left in the lurch. But he managed to get some people out, including my father and his family. So we owe a lot to Manuel Chavez, a brave soul who really stepped in for a bunch of people that would have been slaughtered. We landed in 1960, United States of America. Mommy and Papi said we were going to the land of the free, the home of the brave. We landed and it was the civil rights movement was just getting started. There were on the TV, people getting hosed down, people getting killed. There were signs like the one below, we serve whites only, no Spanish or Mexicans. Ku Klux Klan was active. And so I did not believe that we had come to a free country. I saw the way kids picked this up, that it was free only for some people. And I feel like the promise of Lady Liberty is a promise that I took to heart, and I still believe in it. And I feel like when we don't live up to those ideals, Lady Liberty is ashamed of us. We are not living up to the principles that we supposedly hold dear. So I was bereft, and only, let's see, we landed August 6, 1960, still remember that date, famous in our family. And a few months later, the Mirabar sisters were killed. It was reported in the Dominican Republic. I translated it on the right as a car accident, terrible car accident. But in Time magazine, I dug this up, the hemisphere, warning beneath the cliff, there was already suspicion. And Papi and all the exiles that were agitating and trying to get the word out were so, to feel seen and to feel like people understood what was going on was really important. And I remember this Time magazine because once we were in this country, Papi could tell us the stories. So here we were, 4 sisters, the Alvarez sisters, who got to have freedom, who got to have a new life, who got to have opportunity. And there were the Mirabar sisters. At that point, I only knew about the 3 that had gotten killed, but it felt like we were the sisters that made it. And somehow their story, the sisters who didn't make it, but through them, the country became free, was something that was, it was a story that just obsessed me. I couldn't let go of it. I was always talking about them. I would be in my history class in high school and talk about the Mirabar sisters, and my history teacher that had gone to college and had a master's didn't know about them. I was determined to tell their story, but I didn't yet know how I would do that. And then it so happened that I was asked by a women's press to choose a heroine of my choice from the Dominican Republic for a series of postcards that we're doing for women heroines around the world. And I said, well, can I do them? Mirabar sisters, there's 3 of them. They said, sure. Went back to the Dominican Republic because there wasn't anything written about them. Short chapter in Cras Waller's biography of Trujillo. But of course, it's a small town country. My tia knew them. My tia's dentist knew the daughter of one of the Mirabar sisters, and she took me up to Ojo de Agua to meet Dede Mirabar. I said, who's Dede Mirabar? The 4th sister who hadn't gotten killed. I said, oh, there were 4 of them. Even then I got goosebumps. 4 of us, 4 sisters. And what's more, it was like the muse was giving me a green light. Dede was the 2nd of the 4 sisters, the one left behind to tell the story. And I was the 2nd sister in my family and the storyteller. I felt like I had gotten this huge green light that I had to try to tell the story. Over time, as Tricia mentioned, they became national heroines. The obelisks in their honor are in the Capitol. Every 25th of November when they were killed, there's a big anniversary. This was one of the original posters. There, you really know you've made it when you're on a bill, you know. So they're on the 200 peso bill. So they became national heroines. Schools started to be named after them, streets. But the big deal came in 1999 when the United Nations declared November 25th, the day of their murder, International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. It has been an incredible experience. Every November 25th, I get emails, photos from around the world where people are commemorating the Mirabar sisters. And so just a few of those photos that have come in. This is honoring their day in India. This is in Afghanistan. This is in Romania. And each of those figures has some woman that has died to violence that year in Romania. Here it is in Spain. Here in Thailand, girls marching. Here in Peru. And so it's really stirring that this story from a little country, a lot of people had never heard of, 3 women, and over time, we always get impatient because if it's not happening during our watch, we think we failed. Who knew? They didn't know that this story would spread and capture the imagination of people around the world and stir people to activism and to coming out, to stand together. Together we rise. So it's been very stirring. And of course, our friend Tricia mentioned when I finally got to meet her in person, climbing up Pico de Huarpe, and we made an incredible connection. She had an ecotourism company, and through her travels and taking people around, she had become mobilized, really wanting to do something. And so she switched from entrepreneur to educator, philanthropist, activist, Mama Mariposa. So here we are, that meeting, I think it was in 1997. And I felt like I was standing in the sun. What a radiant, powerful woman, able to really get things going and get people mobilized. Ashur Harasad. Um, and um, and soon enough, she started this incredible organization with her mariposas. And I love their logo. I have it in Spanish. I am the world's most powerful force for change. And we all know you get a girl, you educate a girl, you teach her to read, and all of a sudden things start to change, not just for her, but for her community. Because especially in our country, the women are the center of La Familia. Uh, think of that matriarch of my grandmother with 25 kids around her. She was the powerhouse. She held it together. And so the work that Tricia has been doing with these mariposas, now getting accepted to college with full scholarships, women who are going to be really changing the world. And she is, these are the world's most powerful force for change. They look small, they look dainty, they look pretty. Huh. Don't think they're not powerhouses. Part of the times that I've gone there and been with them, oh, what a loving community, what a loving sisterhood. In fact, my latest children's book was inspired by being with them and really bugging poor Tricia that she had to teach mindfulness training, because I see these girls so filled with so much coming at them, so overwhelmed, so many new things. And I want them not to lose their way, to have mind skills of focus and concentration and being, directing their own course. And I mean, the study's now going on that the mindfulness training is now becoming a part of the curriculum in schools in this country. So I thought, using the metaphor of the butterfly, I would tell a story that would connect with them about this young girl named Mari. Her parents are the Posas, so she's Mariposa. A little dual wordplay there. And again, I've been inspired by them in my own writing. This was an amazing story. Tricia just mentioned that we were starting that our farm project. We started a literacy / coffee co-op project up in the mountains, and many of the girls there, they did not have the Mariposa Foundation there yet. They didn't know how to read. They would draw their names, and so one of the UWC students, United World College, Ria, she's sitting next to Bebe, Doña Bebe, Mama Bebe, as I would call her, to her right. She was a Middlebury student who came to us from UWC. She's from India originally. And when she graduated, she went and she volunteered for a year with a farm, and then worked for the Mariposa Foundation. And while she was on the farm, she started a club, a reading club, Dining for Women, with these new readers. And I'm thrilled to say the first book that they read, mostly she read it to them because it was a struggle, was In the Time of the Butterflies and El Tiempo de las Mariposas. And their reward when the book was done was Mama Bebe was still alive. They went down to the museo and met with them. They have never forgotten that experience. It was thrilling for them to meet this living heroine that they had seen through a story, but now in real life. So that was a really special moment for the women in that community, and for Bebe as well. So the new book that I guess I've been encouraged to mention is Afterlife. I had two pandemic babies, two pandemic books that came out. Afterlife last April, and then In the Time of the Already a Butterfly in June. So I've been doing a lot of Zoom events with this book, and with Already a Butterfly. We mentioned the Scheherazade, and here, here it loops back again. In 2 years ago, I was in DC, and I was on a panel and talking about story and the power of story. And I said, I mentioned Scheherazade, my heroines. And during that time, we were experiencing our own dictatorship in this country, a tyranny. And I was really wanting to use what is my skill, which is storytelling, to bring about change, to get people mobilized to go out and vote. So I mentioned that I always had this idea of the Scheherazade Project. And what I imagine is for 1001 Nights, one woman storyteller, whether it be in dance, whether it be in art, whether it be in music, whether it be a story, whatever her art form, would go in front of the White House and tell her story, 10 minutes max, and then pack up and leave. No polemics, no speeches, nothing but art. Use art for activism. And this woman, another mariposa, we should have these mama mariposas that make that, I'm a big gabber, but they change the world. And Lisa Label heard me and she said, let's do it. I said, Lisa, we're all over the country. She said, we'll do it. We didn't have any funding. We would just all fund our own way. And we didn't get it together before the lockdown, but that turned out to be a good thing because a lot of people that couldn't afford to have gone came from all over the country. We had Margaret Randall, we had Holly Near, we had Sandra Cisneros, we had musicians, we had dancers. Every night there was a different sister, Scheherazade, that told a story. It's on YouTube, you can look it up. And we only had 101 nights, but for 101 nights, we did this. And at the end of every presentation, we would say, get out the vote, get people to vote. So when November 6th came about and people voted and we voted the dictator out, we feel like we sisters made this happen. So stay tuned. We imagine that the Scheherazade sisters will come out again whenever there's a cause that needs storytelling and art and activism. The sisters will be there. So I'm running a little short here, but this is, I promise, the last slide. This is a wonderful Dominican artist who, inspired again by the butterflies, did this amazing print, and I love it. It's on my desktop. And the other one is just a real image of what I really hold dear: activism and writing, that somehow art in service to community and transformation and liberation is really important. So that ends my stop share, and I'm back, and I hope I didn't go too far over and the people are.
You are right on time, Julia.
Oh my goodness.
You are exactly. How's that? How's that?
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for listening. And, it's a repetition for some of you because you've seen some of these images, but.
Julia, we're thrilled. And we have a few questions for you. So we're going to have a few questions that Linda and I will ask. And in the meantime, if anyone else has a question, you can add it to the chat, and Wendy's going to monitor the chat and see what comes up. Linda, do you want to start with the first question?
Sure, I'd be glad to. And thanks so much for that presentation, Julia. It was just wonderful. Well, here's our first question. According to historian Bernard Diedrich, the sisters' assassinations had greater effect on Dominicans than most of Trujillo's other crimes. The killings, he wrote, quote, did something to their machismo, unquote, and paved the way for Trujillo's own assassination 6 months later. Our question is, why do you think that the sisters have become symbols for gender violence rather than political violence?
I think it's both. I think it's both over time. because Minerva's politics were really advanced for her time. But ironically, she was the real founding force. But at that time, Manolo Tavares, her husband, and some of the men said, if we put a woman in charge, we're not going to draw people. So, even within the revolutionary activist group, there was discrimination and gender inequality. So it was embedded in the culture. And one of the interesting things I think is that the gender, that ironically, the fact that this was the men said, if he does this to our women, our daughters, our wives, our mothers, then nothing is beyond him. So in a sense, it was that same machismo and patriarchy, wounded and finally in disgust, that mobilized many of the men that otherwise had been too terrified. And I think it was also that here were women who at that time were not supposed to have public faces or lives or a voice. They have been willing to do this. And my God, what what a call out to men who were the ones in power. The women could do this. Then we've got to do something about it. So, it's always struck me that sometimes it's something we can't minimize, that not all motivations are pure, that we have to get people where they are and get them engaged in a way that they can understand. This violence against our women did it. And it all reminds me of a story that Robert Coles told. He talked about desegregation in New Orleans. And he was very taken with this one woman who had broken the color line, a white woman, and she had kept her kids out of school with all the white women in the community. And she finally one day took her kids, broke through the line of protests against integration, and took her kids to school. And she started other parents that were on the fence to break that too. And he interviewed her. He said, well, what did it? Why, what were you reading? What intellectual things? And she kept saying, well, I believe in the equality of people and all this stuff. And he just wasn't buying that she was telling him the whole story. She said, you want to hear the truth? I had these kids day and night in my house. And one day they got to tussling, and one of them broke my favorite lamp. And I said, that's it, you're going to school. And she grabbed them, broke through the line, and she looked around, and there were these other women coming through. So her motivation was a broken lamp, but she broke the color line. So, you never know what will do it. And I think that in a sense, the machismo and the patriarchy were wounded in a way that made them say, ya, se acabó, it's over.
Thank you.
All right, Julia, I'm going to quote a beautiful passage from your book and ask you to just speak to it. You wrote, I wanted to immerse my readers in an epic in the life of the Dominican Republic that I believe can only be finally understood by fiction, only finally redeemed by the imagination. A novel is not, after all, a historical document, but a way to travel through the human heart.
Yeah, you know what? I wrote that 27 years ago now, and I still believe it. It's very, sometimes I look back and I say, oh, I think I would revise that, but I still believe it. It's, people get changed by feeling stirred and their imaginations captured. And I think that the great thing about story is that it doesn't try to change you or colonize you with good politics or good ideas. It engages all of you, and it helps you to make meaning of experience. And it's a way to understand the experience of being alive, of being a human being. And I think that that is what slowly can transform people. You don't realize this when you read, but when you read a story that really moves you, you come out of that book a slightly different person than who you were when you entered. You know, you're sort of, you're transformed, your view of the world shifts. And I think that for me, stories are able to do that in part because they're not coming at you and telling you you're wrong. I mean, think of the incredible thing a story does. You become the other when you read. I mean, that is, those are the same muscles of social justice and activism, empathy, compassion, becoming the other. You understand your own feelings, you understand a situation, you understand what it's like if you're male to be a woman, if you're a woman to be, if you're a white woman to be a woman of color, you get transformed. And I think that's what stories do. We travel that landscape. And you know, when you think about history, how we experience history while we're living it, it's not through facts, it's not through documents, it's a lived experience. You know, we experience it through our own characters, through our own communities, through our own settings. So in a sense, the strategies that a story uses are the ways that we live our lives, you know, through these different lenses and through the people we know. So I think I think stories have that kind of power.
I think your story had that kind of power for all of us, Julia. Certainly.
Well, I feel like, again, you know, with a story, it's, people will say your story. I say, you know, the story touched me and I told it in my form. And then when I see things like those commemorations around the world, or when there was a group in California that did a theater drama piece, Evoke. It was a group of women activist dancers, and they took their butterflies to the Dominican Republic, and they did community workshops, and that it spreads. And that's when a story really succeeds, when it starts inspiring people to move and connect with their passion and their sense of service.
Thank you.
And your story certainly is inspiring on so many levels. Our next question quotes from the book, "As for the Sisters of Legend," it was your writing, "wrapped in superlatives and ascended into myth, they were also inaccessible to me. I realized too that such deification was dangerous, the same God-making impulse that had created our tyrant. And ironically, by making them myth, we lost the Mirabelles once more, dismissing the challenge of their courage as impossible for us, ordinary men and women." And then our question becomes, how are the sisters of legend different from the actual sisters or the sisters as portrayed in the book? And whether you would like to address that specifically or more from a philosophical point of view.
Well, that's a good question. You know, I felt like when I finally felt so driven to tell this story and had the incredible access to Bebé, and then got to go know Minu, Minerva's daughter, and the whole family. And this was before the museo existed, that they turned into a museum, the house. And basically they said, you know, just, you know, stay here. You can just look wherever you want. And, you know, to go into the bedrooms and see what they wore, that the memorabilia that she had saved, you know, to feel their presence there, to talk to people that knew them, not just as sisters, not just as activists, since they were little girls. The person that had, you know, made their dresses, you know, just to get to know them. It's like, this is what what I call research. And it really is a kind of getting all this information that isn't just intellectual. But, of course, they were already such powerful figures that I thought if they're just powerful figures and they're not the complicated women that I was learning they were, then really it becomes like they're up there on a shelf. They're these special people. They're not like me. I can't be brave like that. I'm not like that. That's why I love the Robert Cole story. You don't need to be this huge anti-racist. Sometimes what gets you going is something you do out of maybe even the wrong reasons, and it concientizas, it raises your consciousness and you change. Reading does that too. So I was afraid, and when I finished, and I interviewed people, not just they and the family, not just the positive stories, and I heard about problems, and I heard about challenges, and I heard about terrors, and I heard about difficulties and conflicts. And I thought, if I airbrush that out of respect, I really don't give them the respect of being full human beings. So I wrote the story with all that complexity. I wanted them to be real, as true to the Mirabar sisters that I had learned about. When I was finishing it, I was terrified. I said, the last thing I would want to do is hurt Tede Mirabar. She has gone through so much in that family. I just am going to change all the names, make it a mythical dictatorship. And when I told Minu, I thought she was going to fly up to Vermont. And she said, are you kidding? This story has to get out. And you're going to write it in English so people will learn about it. And she said, no. I said, Minu, because she knew English. I said, you read the manuscript. You parts that are going to be difficult for the they, you translate it for her and you get back to me. And Minu, bless her heart, she was pregnant, very pregnant, and she went through it. And I just was on pins and needles for weeks, not knowing what was going to happen. And when she called me up, she put Tere on the phone and she said, you've got to publish this. And they gave me her blessing. She said, even the things that you cobbled together or that I didn't know, you caught their spirit. And that to me was a blessing. And she went on tour with me. She and Jacqueline and Minu sometimes were on tour with me. And, she was like, she came alive because she realized that the story that she had kept alive and she had transmitted to others was now becoming a worldwide story. So I think it's, I'm sure, my imagination and my information was, because this was all oral research, there wasn't records, there wasn't footage, there wasn't YouTube, there wasn't, none of that. So I'm sure that, some of the stories that I got told, I felt like, I don't know, And so I felt like my job was that the truth, whatever that was sitting in the center. And there were all these different points of view, each giving a different angle. And my job, my task as a writer was to try to capture as full a circle around them as I could.
I think, Julia, you may have answered one of the questions in the chat, which was asking if there were any diaries that you had access to, or if this was all through the oral story.
All oral.
Okay.
But I have to tell you this. This is, again, sometimes I said, when I found out that the second sister was the storyteller, the one that was alive, left alive to tell the tale, and I'm the second of four, and I'm the storyteller in the family, I thought, oh boy, this is a story that really is meant for me to do. But I had to capture each one's voice and personality, and I had to find the format to capture that personality. So, when I was writing the Bhakti chapters, because she was so religious, I would put on Bach and organ music. I would just feel like I had to do the prose equivalent of what those organ sounds were doing. And Maria Teresa was the youngest. She was just a girl. She was just a girl. And diary forms really capture that juvenile voice, that young voice. And also, I needed a character that would tell you what they had for breakfast, what they wore, you know, who were the boys at the party. You need that kind of texture in a novel. So it was perfect. So I decided to use the diary form. I read, of course, Anne Frank's diary. I read diaries by women during the resistance in France, anything I could get my hands on to try to understand this form. And when I went back, I guess Minou was the one that told me that when she got to that part with Eve, she said, how did Julia know that Maria Teresa was always keeping a little journals? She hadn't showed me anything. There wasn't anything left of a trace of it, but that she liked to do that. And I thought, whoa, you know, it's almost, again, that I felt such synergy there.
Great. So someone asked about the artwork on your last slide of the beautiful Dominican artwork with the butterflies. Can you tell us the name of the artist or how we could find more?
Her name is, you know, maybe what I will do, Beth, is to send it to you and you can put it, because it's Gabriela Alessandro.
Okay.
And it's really interesting because she reached out to me, you know, because a young Dominican artist living in Brooklyn.
Oh.
And she is now doing illustrations for different books. And she is, I guess the website that she is on is Society 6. If you Google Gabi D'Alessandro, D'Alissandro, I think is her last name.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I will send it to you, Beth.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
trying to type it in the chat, but I got maybe close enough that we'll get it. And Wendy, maybe you can find it while we're chatting. Okay.
Yeah, I will try to find it too and spell it correctly, because she's got the most amazing.
Oh,
She
good.
is obsessed with butterflies, and this is
Thank you.
only one of many beautiful images. Yeah.
Someone else, thank you, Amanda, found it and put it in the chat.
Oh,
Somebody else,
great.
a couple people.
Gabi D'Alessandro, there you
Yes,
go.
there we have
Yes.
it. Okay.
Yes. And
All
you
right.
will see, yeah.
It's beautiful. So
Yeah.
here's another. Now, we had prepared a question about a passage on page 222, and Kim, who's in the audience, mentioned it as well with a slightly different spin. So the quote from the book is, "I wanted to start believing in my fellow Dominicans again. Once the goat was a bad memory in our past, that would be the real revolution we would have to fight, forgiving each for what we have all let come to pass." So my original question was going to be, has the Dominican Republic moved to this forgiveness? Kim's question took the spin on, what about the US? Are we going to be able to move past our own recent goat, so to
Yeah.
speak?
And Goat was the name of, they couldn't name his name.
Yeah.
So they had these different code names
Yeah.
for Trujillo, and El Chivo was one of them. And, you know, Beth, the person that asked the question read my mind, because I put that USA, you
Yeah.
know, we are, we have it here too. You know, we have these paths and this reckoning that we have to come to terms with. And I don't think that, you know, Thomas Jefferson, who had his own dark past, but talked about democracy as the unfinished experiment. And it's always an unfinished experiment. We have to be vigilant. Forgiveness is a process that happens and that you constantly have to keep doing as a community, as a culture. And I think that the thing that the danger that I see in my own country and in this country too is forgiveness is not forgetting. It doesn't mean it's all gone. That's when the hard work begins, when you acknowledge what has happened. And then you have to figure out ways to work as a country, as a community, as a world, to acknowledge what's happened and to make the reparations. And I think the thing that in our country, because many times, you know, the way to get past the past that is painful is to bury it. But you know that Mexican saying that we've been seeing on a lot of t-shirts, you know, they tried to bury us. They did not know we were seeds. So it's, you know, it's there. And if we don't deal with it, it will come up and blow up in our face, and it is not going to go away. So I think it's part of, let's call it moral political hygiene, to keep addressing these issues. And I don't think that, I'm sorry, I don't think that the Dominican Republic is really addressing this in a full-blooded, that's interesting, full-bodied way that it should. I've just been part of a campaign in the Dominican Republic called the 3 Exceptions. Abortions are totally illegal in the country. And a group of women activists are trying to get them to allow for 3 exceptions: incest, rape, when the mother's life is threatened, when the child has no possibility of a viable life. And so far, it hasn't been passed. And as I said in my letter, we are the country that gave the world the example of women who, you know, claim the right to their bodies and who want to eliminate violence. And we've given the world this amazing example. And we're really behind so many other countries in allowing just these 3 exceptions. So it's an ongoing struggle. It's not something that goes away. It's, you know, that's what I've realized, because I thought we came to this country, home of the free, land of the brave, and it was a done deal. It's never a done deal. It's never a done deal. It's constant showing up and not forgetting, but, you know, forgiving, because we have to work together as a world community.
Thank you. So let's switch gears, Julia, and we've exhausted our questions, and I think you have us all inspired. I wonder if you'd wanted to say any more about Afterlife, because I think we're all going to be looking for it and look forward to reading it.
Well, Afterlife, I was struggling with, I didn't want to keep repeating what I'd already done. You know, I'm a writer that, for me, writing is traveling through the human heart, and you travel through it, and then you get to its outer reaches, and you want to explore it, because as you explore it and as you learn, your readers are learning with you. And so I was really interested, just like I wrote Garcia Girls, how the Garcia Girls lost their accents because there was a dearth of fiction when I started writing, by multicultural authors, ethnic authors. We were sociology. We were not part of American literature. So there were these silences on the shelf. And I was interested to learn and to explore the experience of being not just immigrants, but female immigrants. What was that like? And so that was a gap or silence that I was writing to. And as I got older, I noticed a dearth of novels and stories with older protagonists, older women protagonists, older Latina women protagonists. And I didn't want airbrush La Abuelita, the Llorona, just the ways in which they were flattened. I wanted to explore what it meant to be an elder of the tribe. Because what I was seeing in my own life is that everyone grows old, but only a few people become elders. What did it mean to be an elder of the tribe? And I wanted to explore that landscape of getting older and what is our work in the world when the world is done with us, supposedly. And so I wanted to have a protagonist also that had spent her life believing in stories. And what happens when the story is not between the covers of the book, but it shows up at her door. Antonia, my protagonist, is an older woman, recently retired from a long career teaching, loving books, believing in the word, talking about the word, talking about stories. And it's not a spoiler alert. First page, her world falls apart. Her husband dies in a terrible accident, and she's left bereft, and not knowing where she's going to be headed. Everything she planned, all the little secure things that she had in place are gone out the window. And life doesn't give you an excuse slip, because just as this is happening, a pregnant, undocumented girl shows up in her garage hiding out. And I was really interested in seeing how do we make it through the worst that can happen to us without losing hope and faith and belief in ourselves and in each other. And what happens when it's not academic, when it's not a beautiful story, but a call to action? And I didn't have the answers. I don't write stories because I know what's going to happen. Believe it or not, I would get bored. I don't write because I know things. I write to find things out. So I was curious to explore and accompany this character through this experience. And, all these things that people say, well, gosh, did you know a pandemic was coming and everyone's world was going to fall apart? I said, no, I didn't have a crystal ball, but I could I sensed, and I still sense that we were living in elegiac times, what I call elegiac times, with so many things falling apart that we hold dear: environmental degradation, violence against communities of color, climate change, species going extinct, divisiveness, gun violence in the schools. I felt like we were living the end of so many things, and we can't afford to lose hope, because the young mariposas are coming, and they need our energy, they need our hope, they need our inspiration. But you also have to face it. You have to go through it, not around it. There are no excuse slips, no detours. So this is a novel that explores what this character does at this moment in her life. What is the afterlife of her life after the life she thought was coming is over? And I think it's, also exploring what does it mean to be an elder, and to step into a larger version of yourself instead of closing down when you're stricken and grieving.
Thank you. So, Julia, I think our Together Women Rise president and CEO, Beth Ellen Holman, would like to come on and say a few words and thank you on behalf of our organization. Beth Ellen, are you here? I'm not. You're not on my screen
here
yet. Oh, there you are.
Yay!
Thank you so much, Beth and Linda, for hosting. And Julia, this is a dream of mine to hear you in person like this, even on Zoom. We have just been looking forward to this for so long. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us, but also sharing of yourself today. And one of the things that you talked about is how we all have stories to tell, and but most of us don't have the um, talent to bring those stories to life like you have. So I want to thank you for the tenacity of hanging on to the stories of the three Mariposas and for bringing them to all of us. And I know that we all look forward to reading your new book, our books. And just thank you so much for spending this
Thank you.
evening with us. And I hope that we can find a chapter of Together Women Rise for you where you live.
Oh, yes. And maybe even in Cabarete, Dominican Republic, because I have to tell you,
Maybe
we're not
someday.
having any more events. And then my Mama Mariposa, who gives me my marching orders, Tricia, said, this organization is incredible. They're so wonderful. Da, 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 da." There was no way. I said to Stuart, we're on. And what a discovery and what a gift to me. I did not know you were out there. You know, we're all doing these little pieces. And when we find each other, together we rise, to quote your new title.
Well,
So thank you.
and that's the piece that every single member of Together Women Rise gives a little or gives a lot, but we don't have a minimum donation. We don't have a requirement to be a part of our organization. Every woman does, every person does what they are able to do to contribute to global gender equality, and obviously we are appreciative of that, and you have been such a gift that we can give back to them tonight, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all. And
Thank
thank you to all my friends. I see some names, and of course I see Tricia's wonderful face there. And I just can't thank all of you enough for the work you're doing, because, you know, I get the attention. It seems like I've done so much, and all these little invisible hands are meanwhile holding up the world. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julia. You've inspired us.
Thank you.
And
I believe,
you go ahead, Beth. Thank you
Oh, go
so
ahead.
much for hosting.
Thanks, Beth Ellen. Well, we were going to head out into small breakout rooms. And I think Wendy might put some seed questions in the chat for the breakout rooms. So we're going to, Julia, you're welcome to stay on, but if you feel like you need to step out.
I don't even know how to break into a chat room.
We will put you there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll stick around my bedtime isn't for another 40 minutes. I am getting old myself.
Thank you. So we're going to move to small breakout rooms, which in the past, our book club, we've heard the book club committee always hears that this is one of really a time that people like to meet in small groups to talk about the book, going with the questions in the chat or whatever has inspired you. And I think that, Julia, you've inspired us. There will be lots to talk about. And then we'll come back, it looks like in about 15 minutes.
And I am going, wherever you put me, I am going to mute myself and I'm going to listen.
Okay. All right.
So,
Wendy will do this magic in the background. And on your screen will be usually an invitation, right, Wendy, to go into a breakout room?
So I
Say
did.
goodnight, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so much.
That was wonderful.
Gracias. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Okay, well, it's nice to see everyone back. I'm going to give you a little heads up on what's coming up for our future big reads because we have some wonderful books on the horizon. On June 21st, which is in conjunction with World Refugee Day, which is June 20th, we'll be reading A Hope More Powerful Than the Sea, One Refugee's Incredible Story of Love, Loss, and Survival by Melissa Fleming. And our giveaway will be 3 books, 3 of Melissa Fleming's book. But that's a wonderful book. And if you haven't heard Melissa Fleming, I would encourage you to listen to her TED Talk. Then in August, we have Shores Beyond Shores, From Holocaust to Hope by Irene Butter. And the author, Irene Butter, will be our special guest for that book talk. September takes us to Caste, The Origins of Our Discontent by Isabel Wilkerson,
Oh,
another
good.
amazing author. November 3rd, Standing in the Way, From Trafficking Victim to Human Rights Activist by Anjali Tamang and Sarah Simmons. And she is a DFW grantee for her Future Coalition. And then all the way into January 2022, January 24th, The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abi Dare. So those dates and the titles are all under the events on the Dining for Women website. So please take a look and join us for those. Now, Wendy, there you are. Wendy has the wheel of free books for 3 books of Melissa Fleming's book.
Yes, we're going to give away 3 copies of A Hope More Powerful Than the Sea. And I know we've gone a little bit later tonight, but I'm going to assume that everybody thought it was well worth it to listen to Julia Alvarez all this time. But quickly now, spin the wheel. You do have to be here. So let's hope that whoever wins is still in attendance. Esperanza, are you here? Going, gone? All right, let's try again. Rita, are you still? Rita, are you here?
Oh my gosh, Rita.
Oh, no.
Did she leave already? Sorry, Rita. Your loss. Lisa. Lisa still here? Oh, it's going to be one of those nights.
It's,
A long time.
Okay, here we go. No, Connie. All right. Vicky, are you still here?
Here, I'm here.
all right. Great.
All right, Vicky, copy's coming your way.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Judy. No, Judy? Okay. Letitia?
Oh, Letitia in Greenville.
She's not here, Beth Ellen.
Oh, bummer.
Haven't done. No,
No?
there were several done, but nope. Oh. Okay. Nicole Smith. We have Catlin Smith, but we don't have Nicole Smith, right?
I'm here.
Oh,
Heather. No, Heather. Okay. Very soon, we're going to be giving it out to anybody who's,
Yeah.
I think Catlin, you might be getting it for having switched your last name. No?
The Smith effect.
Yeah. Tina.
no, Tina. Oh,
Tina. Rona. No. Okay. Susan? No.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
No. I know this sometimes this happens.
Half the people are gone.
We had about 200 sign up and about 50 are there now.
Debbie Monaco, are you here? No.
How many more do you want to give away, Wendy?
2 more.
2 more. Is there anyone who's still here who is new?
Oh, no.
I'm a first time
Oh!
booklover.
I am.
Me.
I'm a
Maria.
first time booklover.
Me.
Maria.
Okay. Maria?
I'm you.
Maria is new to Together Women Rise.
I am.
I am.
And Julie Wade. Wow, so many new people.
I'm looking for Naples chapter, if anyone can point me in the right direction.
Oh, we have one down
Jan
there.
Richards, are you still on the? Jan, can you help Julie out with the Naples chapter?
I can. Put your email address in the chat, Julie, and I'll
Great.
hook you up.
Okay.
All right, so who do we have that's new? We have Maria.
Maria
Yes.
Jimenez and
Maria.
Julie,
Is this new to the book group or new to?
Yeah.
new to
New to
the
Together Women Rise.
Oh, I'm not.
Me, Denise.
Sorry, Suzanne.
I am. I am new.
I'm not new to the.
New.
Denise Perez.
Denise Perez. I
And
am
what-
new.
So I will email you, Maria, and you, Denise, and get your mailing addresses so that we can send you a book out.
thank
For our
you.
next book group.
But the requirement is that you have to start a chapter.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
to the book group, book club committee. What a wonderful event this was tonight. I'm so grateful to have had that opportunity. It was wonderful.
Really great to have gotten Julia Alvarez.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for whatever you did to set all this up and get her here.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. I think we're all just so inspired. We want to just go back
Yeah.
and immerse ourselves in
Yeah.
her writing and her stories.
Yes, yes.
Will the recording be available?
Yes.
Yes.
It was so wonderful to have her personal perspective. That was just it just added so much.
Yep.
Yes, or we're all going to enroll in adult ed classes at Middlebury College so we can spend more time with her.
I think she's retired. I think she's retired.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Oh.
Well, she can write more books.
That's right. That's right.
Well, her
Thank you.
new book is available at our library. It might be at yours too. I just got the ebook. So,
Thank you. Anything
Beth
else?
and Linda, great job
Yes.
hosting us and moderating us tonight. And Beth was really the one that spearheaded getting Julia. She did all the communications with Julie's agent. I mean, I think Patricia recommending Together Women Rise might have helped a little bit too, but Beth did all the legwork and communications back and forth. So thank you, Beth. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Hello. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Bye-bye.
Hello.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Yes, somebody trying to say something.
Yeah, I am. I'm sorry. My friend Sarah Bash won the wheel last month, and she never received her book at all. So I just wanted to note that she stayed online afterwards because they asked her to stay online. And so she stayed online afterwards, and then they never asked her anything and they disconnected.
You want to put her name in the chat? Would that be helpful, Wendy?
I have her name and I'm going to check back in my records and see. I remember her name clearly and I will see what happened there.
Yeah, she never got it. And we told her, several of our club members, our group members knew that she had won and asked at our meeting and everything, but we never got it. So they said they'd reach out and try to find out, but nothing happened from it.
I will definitely look into it. Thank you for letting me know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Wendy.
Good night. Thanks, Beth. Thanks,
Oh,
Linda.
Thanks, Wendy. Thanks.
Did an
Linda.
amazing job.
Good night, everyone.
That was just phenomenal. I just, it was just excellent. Can't imagine.
It really was. I wish that, I mean, more people had attended.
Yeah.
Too.
Well, I wonder when we should have something in the next newsletter just about what an amazing event it was.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe even there's some, I don't know if it's worth picking up some quotes from the recording.
All right. Well,
All right.
have a good evening. It was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wendy, behind the scenes.